Hey, what's up? How's it going? There's a couple things I want to say about this mandatory mandatory injection. Is it's in my mind, I think it's designed for a few reasons, and/or it's going to have certain reactions that are going to play out, and some of those I think is it's a way to weed out people um, all across the board who do not comply. It's a way to force people to only hire the people who do act like sheep and who do only follow what other people say because their lack of personal guidance. And it's going to be used in everywhere from factories to the health um, professions, entertainment, everything. And it's really insane because it should be alarming. After all the facts and research that has been gathered by now at this point, we understand that the injection does not stop the virus at all. It does not stop the spread of the virus. It does not do anything except for lessen the severity. And if all it's doing is lessening the severity for each individual, then it should be nobody else's business and nobody else should care because it doesn't increase the spread of infection. Now it's basically just people telling you what you have to do with your body. What's wrong with me wanting to go through all the side effects of not taking it and going through the pain of being sick and letting my body do the work? You know, anyone else's viewpoint has already been debunked. It's nobody else's business how you want to proceed going forward with this. If all it's going to do is lower the severity, then so what? I don't care. I'll go through all those symptoms. Because one of the reasons why it's healthy for that to happen is because that's part of your body fighting it off. And your body has to know how to deal with it to fight it off. Because if you just take treatments and treatments and treatments, and then it comes down to just your body, you won't be able to fend it off. You know, it's the same as when people become too dependent on vitamins. If people take vitamin supplements every day, when they start skipping doses, they start getting sick. The same with like an antibiotic. You're dependent on it for as long as you have it. So it becomes very dangerous at that point to not take it. And why are other people so in your face about making sure you take it? It sounds like it's extremely selfish. Remember all the people who said, my body, my choice? And now they're telling you that you're not allowed to have your own choice and you have to do what other people tell you. This should make you think about what's going on here, and there must be some ulterior motive behind it. Is it some form of genetic therapy? I mean, technically, yeah, it is, because it's injecting you with RNA and binding with yours in order to create these other proteins that are supposed to be, or antibodies that are designed to cut off the protein and cover the proteins of these viruses to stop them spreading. But the further we go into this, the more we realize what's actually happening here. And I think people really need to wake up, because you don't want to be dependent on anything else. One of the main reasons why human beings have lived this long is because we've relied on our immune system and we've allowed it to become stronger and stronger. There's never been any virus or anything that's been so destructive that it wiped out humanity before. So why now, when we have the highest health thresholds in the world that we've ever had before, because of the nutrition that we have, the availability of foods, exercise, the ability to purify things, we are more healthy now than we have ever been. And the more we become dependent on drugs and drug companies, the less healthy we're going to be, because we become dependent. It's kind of like how you see in the United States the incline of mother mortality and why more and more people feel like they're dependent on hospitals in order to give birth or to do these other things. That should be alarming, because are we putting ourselves in humanity into a position to where now we rely on the technology, and if this technology fails, then we fail and we die? There should be no reason that we need to depend on the technology of these health officials unless there's something extremely dire, which is only going to be true in very particular cases. And that goes with really pretty much anything across the board. So in my mind and in my opinion, this is being used for a submissive effect and to gain control over the population. I mean, look what's happening in Australia right now, and look at that in comparison to Sweden. In Sweden, they didn't have mask mandates. They don't have vaccination mandates. It's a neutral country, so you can't have other governments come in and take over. And they have some of the least amount of death and cases in the entire world. And yet you look to other countries that have had mask mandates and all these other restrictions, and for some reason, they seem to have more deaths. The mortality rate has increased. Why is that? And then we've also uncovered the fact that people that were dying for any reason was labeled as COVID just because it was happening during a certain time. And then you look at Australia and see how they're locked down and they're not allowed to go further than 2 or 3 miles out of their home. They're being imprisoned. And it's like a subtle form of martial law, to where they can't outright say it's martial law because then they realize, they give themselves away. So you've really got to think about what's happening in this world, and the people who are just so pro-government no matter what happens. Since when did that happen? Since when has everyone become so pro-government? It's like people are starting to also look at politics as if it's some sort of like a team in a sports game, to where they go, no matter what my side does, I'm going to back them. It's like, that's stupid. People should be thinking independently of parties. They shouldn't go, oh, well, Republicans told me this, so I'm going to follow. Oh, Democrats told me this, so I'm going to follow no matter what. That's wrong. That's the sign of a weak mind, and that's the sign of a weak person. We shouldn't be playing sides. You should have an individual viewpoint of your own that you've had when you've accumulated all this data yourself. But you see that there's so many complexities to the human mind that not everyone understands how to even use their brain. Not many people even want to know how. A lot of people don't even want to accept the reality of the situation we're in, and they want to deny it. When this whole situation happened, I was so for it. I tried to help with coming up with the cure and the vaccination. I tried, doing everything I could. I went and bought masks. I told everyone to, be isolated and to start new hobbies and get into it. And then sooner or later, my eyes really started opening up and I started seeing what's really happening here. And it really is about control. It's kind of like 9/11, how 9/11 was used in order to control people and to control their minds in every aspect of life. A lot of people that are younger have no idea. So this to them is something new and shocking. However, when 9/11 did happen, I remember how the world completely changed and how so many rights and freedoms to Americans and as individuals were taken away with the Patriot Act and everything else that had followed. People that are younger don't know that, and especially the ones who have just gone through college and don't remember what it was like or witnessed 9/11 or any of that. They're mindless drones being filled up to the brim with crazy nonsense. And you can see it in a lot of the behavior of a lot of the people that go to school, whether it's the transgender movement or anything else. Like, these are clear signs of mental problems, and they don't know how to cope, and they don't know how to cope with a world like this. It's a little bit easier for me and some people that are older because we were in the water and we saw the water boiling around us. A lot of these young people are just thrown into it, so it's just chaos. And that's why you see a lot of them become very suicidal and have lots of mental breakdowns, because it's all too much for them to handle, because there's everything they have to worry about. Everything, even the complexities of how life intertwines with the electronic world and how they have to keep track of all these different accounts and all these different passwords and make sure that they don't lose things and transfer all their data here and there and have everything susceptible to hacking. And it's really hard, and there's so many more pressures, and there becomes more and more pressures. And I think a lot of it, not only does it happen naturally, but a lot of it happens on purpose in order to distract people from so many things in their life that they just give up, that they just give in to submission. Whether it's the government or it's these technocrats or oglopolies or whatever you want to call it. And it's really important to keep your mind and stay focused and look at everything that's happening around you, because we're in some really interesting times right now, and the last thing you want is someone taking away the last bits of freedom that you have. And it's really important to stay aware and to stay proactive in keeping those things. And I'm going to take a chance of becoming infected. 2 of my brothers came down with COVID. Neither of them got shots, and they completely got over it, and they're totally fine now. And not only that, but their immune system is probably stronger. How you have to think about the science too, and not just make up science, because people like to throw that word around, but we haven't even come up with vaccination or an actual cure for the flu. And part of it is because the flu constantly mutates every single year, actually like twice a year, during the season changes. And it's important to realize that, because with this new SARS, you have to realize that it's going to mutate. It's never going to go away. It's going to be in humanity forever and ever and ever. Until maybe 100 years from now, when they start coming up with other types of medication. But as long as human beings are human beings, then there's going to be human beings that survive. There's never going to be one single disease that wipes us all out, because of how diverse our genetic material is. And that's one of the important things too. That's what, prevented all the Europeans from dying during the plague, and even into the Middle East the plague reached, and it killed a third of the population, but it didn't kill the other 2/3 because they're variants of DNA. And that's the same thing that happens in nature all the time. That's how animals survive, is because of, especially mammals, Sometimes you do have problems, and you can see a problem arise, like something with like banana trees, for instance. There are certain funguses and molds that could actually threaten, the majority of banana trees, because they were all cloned from previous trees and they all share the same DNA. Humans are a bit different because we weren't cloned. And if we do start cloning people, that is going to be a problem. Obviously, depending on how they do it. I'm kind of against cloning anyway, even though it's a curiosity to me and I find it fascinating. But you have to think about what's going on here and what's going on in the world, and how much of this is going to be a power grab by certain people. Try to put your mind into their frame of mind, and think about how they look down on us, and they feel like they can just control us, and they should, because they have the right to. That's how they feel. They don't, but they will try. And they'll use anything from brainwashing people from birth, with media, with lies, rewriting history, doing all these things. So it's really important to pay attention and not let these people take control of you, because that's what this is. They're going to push further and further until everyone hired everywhere, like they're doing in Canada, is going to be forced to have a vaccine. And then they're going to start, like I said before, I said this over a year ago, they're going to start denying people food, denying jobs, denying money, to the point where they're probably going to call them criminals, and they're going to say they're disease criminals, and they're going to round them up, execute them, and the only people that are going to be left are the ones who will just be submissive to everything. It's kind of like they're breeding people. This is how they force breed people, just like how they do with dogs and cats, and how they made animals domesticated. That's what they're doing. They're re-domesticating human beings, and they're weeding out the ones who think for themselves, because to them that's a threat, because they're going to get in their way of absolute control. So start paying attention and looking to what's going on here, and keeping an eye open. Watch for what's happening here. These people don't care about you. They want control over you, and they're going to do everything they can, including, holding you up to certain standards that would otherwise, if this was any other time and date in the past, would have been absolutely unconscionable. So pay attention to what's happening, because they're really starting to breed people like cattle, and they're re-domesticating them using scare tactics, fear, and this vaccination. So pay attention. I'll catch you in the next video. So take care. Love you all. I'll see you soon. Bye now.